happening? Welcome in. The Matt Bernier Show, DRFTV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, the Daily Racing Forms Twitter handle, that would be at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Forms Facebook page. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter, at Bernier_Matt. This is the recap edition of the Matt Bernier Show, taking a look back at the racing weekend of April the 14th, and we got a couple of races from Friday, April the 13th as well, a couple of grade ones for that matter. If you are listening to this in podcast form, like most of you do, you have YouTube, you have iTunes, SoundCloud, video.drf.com. If you're watching on YouTube, click that subscribe button. You will subscribe to the Daily Racing Forms YouTube channel. You will get all the latest offerings from DRFTV. Let's dive right into it. The final 100-point prep, as far as the Kentucky Derby prep races was concerned, came up on Saturday afternoon. This was the field for the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby. Field of 9. They were all going to need to beat the heavy morning line favorite for Todd Pletcher, horse called Magnum Moon, 3 for 3 in 3 lifetime starts, has not done anything wrong, has won from slightly off of the pace, has won from pressing the pace. He was going to be the favorite on Saturday afternoon, but he would need to deal with horses like Quip, the winner of the Tampa Bay Derby, horses like Solomini, who, making his second start as a 3-year-old, figured to need that start in the Rebel to be ready to go and fire at his peak. Would Magnum Moon be able to defeat all of them? Or would someone come up and try to make a big statement and say, we're here, we also have a reason to believe that we can run well the first Saturday in May? Let's find out. Vic Stoffel.
Derby and Magnum Moon cuts the corner and leads. Magnum Moon has suddenly opened up a 3.5 length margin. Combatant to the outside of Solomini. Magnum Moon comes to the final 16th, and he's going to be an undefeated Arkansas Derby winner. Get ready, Kentucky. There's a bad moon on the rise.
Magnum Moon, much the best, winning the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby $1 million race. Pays $3.60 on top as the 4-5 favorite. Quip runs second as a 6-1 choice, and the third place finisher is the number 5, Solomini. He was your second choice in the race, bet down to odds of 5-2. Magnum Moon is a 3-year-old colt. He is owned by Robert E. and Luana L. Lowe. He's 4 of 4 lifetime, over $1.1 million in career earnings, trained by Todd Pletcher. If you haven't gotten used to the name already as far as the Derby is concerned, Todd Pletcher has an army going into Louisville, including Magnum Moon as one of his sort of key players for the Kentucky Derby. This horse was bred by Ramona S. Bass, LLC in Kentucky, ridden to victory by Luis Saez. You see the pedigree at the bottom of the page. He is by Malibu Moon out of an unbridled song mare named Dazzling Song. A 98 Beyer speed figure for Magnum Moon, a 116 time Form US rating. He came home in 11.99 for the final eighth of a mile. That is important, and it's usually a nice little barometer looking forward anyway, knowing that they're going to need to go another eighth of a mile here in 3 weeks at Churchill Downs underneath the Twin Spires. How they come home, how they finish, that's an important key. Maybe not necessarily deciphering a winner. I mean, obviously it's important, but even for looking for those minor awards, if you're looking to construct wagers like trifectas and superfectas, Magnum Moon is a very, very talented horse. But there are a couple things about this Arkansas Derby that need to be acknowledged. Timeform US has the 3/4 and at the top of the lane, those fractions color-coded blue, meaning they were slow. That certainly aids and helps a horse like Magnum Moon, who's out there on the front end. They went fast early, that opening quarter in 23-1, but you see that second quarter, they backed it down significantly. The half-mile number was 48-3. Quick math, that's giving you, what, about a 25-2 second quarter? That's a relatively slow tempo, slow pace, and you could see that because Magnum Moon's ears were up and he was loving life, just galloping on the front end. Quip sat just off of him throughout. I think it was a very good effort from Magnum Moon, but we need to acknowledge some other pieces as well. When they're rounding the far turn and Magnum Moon and Quip are eyeballing one another, it looks all well and good, and sure, Magnum Moon basically shrugs off Quip, but you have to acknowledge the early lead change coming off of the far turn. Generally speaking, that's not a good thing. Can possibly mean a physical issue, or it could just mean that they're not putting it all together. The problem I have with that latter statement is he had done everything professionally prior to that. So all of a sudden now you throw this into the mix, not something I love to see 3 weeks out from the biggest race of his life. Also, that stretch run, he may have come home much faster than anyone else in this race, but you can't argue with the fact that he drifted out about 5 paths down the center of the racetrack. He finished very well. He's a nice horse. I have no real knock against him. How can you? He's 4 for 4. But there are those couple little things that would probably make me think twice before picking a horse like this the first Saturday in May. Not saying he can't win, certainly can, but I think a couple things. That little lead change early, and I understand the amount of people that say they don't care about lead changes, and I just harp on it. I don't really care. This is not for you. Don't listen. Fast forward if it bothers you. Early lead change is usually a sign that it's not a positive, put it that way. Drifting out, not usually a positive thing. Now you've got to go an extra eighth of a mile in 3 weeks. It's a lot to throw at a horse that did not debut until he was 3. As far as his speed figures are concerned, another thing that I'm a little bit unsure of where we stand with this horse. 98 buyer, not a heck of a lot faster than the career debut. I believe he earned a 95 in his debut, and he has lived in that 95 to 98 range. That's fast, don't get me wrong, but when you've got a horse like Justify running 107s, and you possibly have a horse like Mendelssohn running a mid-100, and you have a horse like Good Magic who's run a 100 as a 2-year-old, and possibly, maybe he's ready to go, Magnum Moon's going to need to run the race of his life in 3 weeks. All of them are going to need to run the race of their life, but Magnum Moon is going to need to up his game substantially in order to be the one to win the Run for the Roses. Quip, I thought Quip ran just fine. I wonder if this, to me, shows that he's not quite of the top level, but at the same time, keep in mind, he had not run since the first or second week in March. So this was a nice little gap for him, and this was only his second start as a 3-year-old, so I suppose there's reason to believe that he can move forward in 3 weeks' time. He's just another one. He got a 94 as far as a buyer is concerned in that Tampa Bay Derby. He earns a 92 here. He's going to need to improve, plain and simple. Solomini, I was against him coming into this race for a couple reasons. I thought his most recent workout was just putrid, and he's always been a little bit unprofessional as far as the lead changes are concerned, which is a very odd thing because Bob Baffert's entrants are never unprofessional. They are usually like clockwork, very similar to Todd Pletcher's horses, and that's probably why when these things happen for these trainers, it's a major red flag. It makes your ears go up and go, wait a minute, something's not right here. Solomini, he's just not professional as far as the lead changes are concerned, but he ran a heck of a lot better than I thought he was going to on Saturday. He was wide every step of the way. He came with a bid rounding the far turn, and he stayed on. He fought on gamely. He was very late with the lead change. He didn't change until he was inside the 16th pole. But it was a better effort than I thought we were going to get, but the problem is still, he's not fast enough right now, and I'm not convinced that he's taken a step forward from 2 to 3. I'm also starting to wonder, I understand he came home in 12-19, just a shade under 12-1. I'm starting to wonder if maybe he's not, as the distances go longer, is he going to get better? Maybe he's a one-turn kind of horse. Maybe a middle distance is going to be more preferential for a horse like Solomini. Combatant is what he is at this point. He keeps showing up with these late runs. I think he still wants shorter. That's just my opinion. I would love to see him in a race like the Pat Day Mile, a one-turn mile. Let him come from off the pace and just let him roll. This race really, though, boils down to the winner in Magnum Moon. What do you think of his chances going forward? He hasn't done anything wrong on the racetrack. And that's why, for me, it's difficult to sit here and say, well, I didn't like this, I didn't like this, I didn't like this, because all this horse has done is gone out and won by open lengths in all 4 of his lifetime starts. The problem is there are enough little things for me that could possibly equate to a big thing to make me a little bit leery about him going forward. Am I going to be saying right now that I won't pick him? Maybe. We've got to wait and see how the post positions go and how everybody trains leading up to the Derby. But he's a nice horse. I like him a lot. I'm a little bit concerned with some of the things that we saw on Saturday. As visually impressive as that finish was, there were enough little things mechanically that make me a little bit concerned about getting that extra eighth of a mile against better horses on the biggest stage. At the end of the day, though, Magnum Moon is a Grade 1 winner. He wins the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby, 98 buyer, 116 Timeform US rating. Let's go to Kentucky. Keeneland Racecourse, Lexington, Kentucky. Saturday afternoon, the Grade 1 event they ran there on the turf. Mile and 16th for older fillies and mares was the Grade 1 Jenny Wiley. This was the field of 11. This was about as good a field as you're going to find for a graded stakes race, not on, let's say, Belmont Stakes Day or Breeders' Cup Friday or Saturday. This field was loaded top to bottom with quality. Your favorite was Dona Bruja, an interesting mare because at this point in her career, she showed a new dimension in her most recent start down at Tampa Bay Downs where she took a field gate to wire. She's usually accustomed to coming from off the pace. Now, all of a sudden, you introduce a new running style. Maybe that was going to lend itself to her here in this situation. You have a horse like La Coronel who loves the Keeneland turf course. Some horses love it. Some horses hate it. She is certainly a lover of the turf course. She would be an interesting price in here. And then you had the Chad Brown Triumvirate. You had 4-Star Crook, you had Off Limits, and you had the 4-year-old debut of Sister Charlie, a very highly regarded horse. She was second in the Belmont Oaks last year as a 3-year-old, second in the French Oaks last year as a 3-year-old. What would we get from her in her 4-year-old debut? Kurt Becker with the stretch run at the Jenny Wiley.
Charlie looked toward the inside, 6 lengths from the front. Dona Bruja, short lead. La Coronel is alongside. Sister Charlie comes up the inside third. Cambodia in fourth. 4-Star Crook is running late and fast toward the rail, but is still 3 lengths off the lead. Sister Charlie comes forward past La Coronel. And it is Sister Charlie trying to fend off the late run of 4-Star Crook, and she does it. Sister Charlie wins the
Very impressive effort from Sister Charlie. She wins the Grade 1 Coolmore Jenny Wiley, pays $8.80 on top. Running second was the number 11 4-Star Crook. 4-Star Crook went off at odds of 7-1 beneath Javier Castellano, also trained by Chad Brown. And the third place finisher was Off Limits. She went off at odds of 5-1, also trained by Chad Brown. Let's take a look at Sister Charlie. 4 of 7 lifetimes, 6 times in the exacta, over $731,000 in career earnings. She's owned by Peter Brandt, trained by Chad Brown, bred by, I'm going to take a shot here, Usury de Monceau. Apologize if I butchered that. In Ireland, ridden to victory by John Velasquez. And you can see the pedigree at the bottom of the page. She is by My Boy Charlie out of a Galileo mare named Starlet's Sister. 103 Beyer speed figure, 126 time form U.S. rating, came home in 28-2, did Sister Charlie. This is a very, very impressive effort when you consider this might not be her game. She's probably better going longer, 1.25 miles, 1.5 miles even. The fact that she can do this off of a long layoff against arguably the best older fillies and mares that we have at 8.5 furlongs, she can decimate this field. She had a perfect trip, perfect ride. Everything worked out beautifully. John Velasquez hugged the rail, angled her out about the 8th pole, and she absolutely motored home. This was a very, very impressive effort, and it's scary to think that second off the layoff, going longer, she could be even better than what we saw on Saturday. She earned that 103 Beyer, that 126 time form U.S. rating. I do wonder going forward. You've got to assume races like the Beverly D, big circle around that one. The Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, big circle around that one. But other than that, then where does she go? You know, I'm not sure that she's really a miler. We'll talk about some of the milers here in this spot and where they may go going forward. But Sister Charlie is in that rare sort of distance where for the older fillies and mares, I suppose maybe a race like the New York on Belmont Stakes weekend at 1.25 miles, but it's a Grade 2 at this point. Don't you want the Grade 1s? Maybe up at Saratoga, 1.1 miles, she can run in a race like the Diana, but I think she's a tremendous talent. She's so lightly raced. Chad's only had her, I know he's had her for a long time, but she only raced truly once for him because I don't really count that Belmont Oaks last year because he only had her for about 3 weeks at that point. Now that he's got her and figuring her out, it's very exciting to think of what she could possibly do going forward at longer distances, which are probably distances that she's more comfortable with. 4-Star Crook, very nice effort, good horse, very talented. She can do a number of things. I'm not going to sit here and knock her. I still think that she's probably a little bit better against New York breds, obviously, but she's Grade 1 place now. She's worth her weight in gold. Wherever they run her, she's going to be a player. Off Limits, I want her turned back to the flat mile. You have a couple of instances going forward where a flat mile is well within range. You've got the Distaff Mile, which would be on the Derby undercard, I believe, at Churchill Downs. And then you also have the Just a Game at Belmont Park on the undercard of the Belmont Stakes. I believe Off Limits is better at that flat mile than she is at 1 1/16. And then we had that run in her most recent start prior to this that was at Tampa Bay off the layoff at 1 1/8. I think she is a flat miler, stone cold, whether they run her in that Distaff Mile at Churchill or they run her in the Just a Game or they run her in both. I think that's what Off Limits game is going forward. If you get her at that flat mile, I think she's going to be very, very tough to beat. La Coronel, don't want to spend too much time on her. Beautiful trip in here. She loves the Keeneland turf course. I don't think she's as good as the top girls in this spot. Dona Bruja, interesting to hear Jose Ortiz after the race say we didn't plan on her being on the lead. We wanted to be sitting off of a target, second, third, or fourth. It was still a disappointing effort, in my opinion. She didn't have that pack. She didn't pack that punch that she showed down at Tampa Bay down the lane. Now, this is 2 dull efforts at Keeneland. But the first one for her was a built-in excuse where there was no pace, and she would have had to come home in 20 seconds flat. I think she's good, but the problem is now if we're not sure what kind of running style she wants, if we want her to come from off the pace, but she wants to go, as much as I like the idea of her being able to be forward and take things over, if the connections are unsure how they want her ridden, now I'm a little bit unsure going forward. But I still think there's a ton of ability. She was, only beaten by a head in the Beverly D last year. There are plenty of races for Donna Bruja going forward. I'm not too concerned about that. One other horse that perhaps you want to throw in your sort of stable mail or something else would be Proctor's Ledge. Proctor's Ledge is a horse for me that you can go into Formulator and you can filter what you want to see in your past performances and what you don't want to see. I have filters set for every distance on every surface, and it will blacken out all of the sort of, I shouldn't say that. It will highlight the races that fit the filter. So this race is at 1 1/16. I have it set where I'll get all races between 1 mile and 1 1/16 on turf. I believe that Proctor's Ledge, this is what she wants to do. 1 1/16, I think this is a better distance for her, maybe even a flat mile. I firmly believe she doesn't like Keeneland. You can go through and look. She ran this race here, and she's run, I believe, at least one other time at Keeneland. That was last fall in the QE2. I just don't think she gets over this course, and I think that's an important thing to keep in mind with a number of horses. Some love the Keeneland turf, and some hate it. I don't think she likes it. If you go to the run back at Tampa most recently, that was a winning effort. I don't think she got beat by other horses. I think she got beat by the 1 1/8 off the layoff. And then you take that Keeneland race out of her 3-year-old form, you've got really, really solid races. Big efforts, a win at Saratoga, runner-up finishes here and there. I think it'll be fascinating to see where Proctor's Ledge comes back again. And look, she didn't run terribly. I know she was finished 8th in here. She was very wide throughout. She made a big, bold move on the far turn. She just flattened out down the lane. I think Proctor's Ledge is one that you want to keep an eye on going forward, where she gets away from Keeneland. Keep her at this 1 1/16. I think Proctor's Ledge, I don't think we've heard the last of her, and maybe this is going to be that opportunity to get her at a little bit of a dirtied up sort of number where on paper she doesn't look like she's been really running all that well, but I think she ran a lot better than it looks here. Again, get her out of Lexington, get her maybe to Churchill Downs. Don't know if she's really quite good enough for a race like the Just the Game, but that distaff mile on the Derby undercard on Derby weekend, I think that would be an interesting spot for Proctor's Ledge. No questions about it, though. The star of the show in the Grade 1, Jenny Wiley, was Sister Charlie in her 4-year-old debut. She gets the job done. A Grade 1 winner here in the United States. 126 time form U.S. rating, 103 buyer speed figure. The first of 2 Grade 1s from Friday afternoon, Friday the 13th. Let's go down to Oaklawn, Arkansas, Hot Springs. This was the field for the Grade 1 Apple Blossom. There was a big, big name in here. Your 1-5 favorite come post time, Unique Bella, coming in, shipping out of California for the first time in her life, facing a less than fast track for the first time in her life. Had a couple different things thrown at her, but she was still supposed to get the job done. Supposed to just be kind of a foregone conclusion. That's why they run the race. Vic Stauffer with the stretch run of the Grade 1 Apple Blossom.
Both have good chances to upset her, and Unique Bella only leads by a neck. Streamlined, Unbridled Mo in the center. Unique Bella has been caught, and she has been passed by Unbridled Mo, who has taken over the lead, and now she's 3 in front. Unique Bella will try to hold second, but Unbridled Mo is going to win the Apple Blossom. Unbridled Mo, yes.
Unbridled Mo for Todd Pletcher gets the job done, wins the Grade 1 Apple Blossom, pays $11.60 on top. The number 5 Unique Bella runs second as the 1-5 favorite. She is defeated. We will touch on her more momentarily. And Furiously Kissed, second longest shot on the board at 56-1, runs third. Those connections have to be thrilled with the way that whole thing played out. Let's take a look and see some more info as far as the winner is concerned. Unbridled Mo is 7 of 10 lifetime, just under $1 million in career earnings. This is a really underrated horse for what she has accomplished out on the racetrack. She's owned by Red Oak Stable Brunetti, trained by Todd Pletcher, bred by Red Oak Stable in Kentucky. Ricardo Santana Jr. with a big fist pump as he goes across the wire. And you see the pedigree. She's by Unbridled Mo, or I'm sorry, out of Uncle Mo, out of an unbridled mare named Unbridled Waters. 95 buyer speed figure. 117 time form U.S. rated for Unbridled Mo, winning the 54th running of the Apple Blossom. Came home in 31-3. This was a tale of, let's start right from the beginning. Unique Bella stumbles badly out of the gate. She was just kind of flat-footed, and we have to give credit to Mary Rampolini and Jim Dunleavy. They were down there in Hot Springs, and they had video of Unique Bella schooling at the gate, and she was not loving life. She didn't want to go in, da-da-da-da-da. Clearly, I don't know what the situation is, because how different is a gate in Arkansas than a gate in California? for whatever reason, she was not alert, and she bobbled out of the gate. The problem with a horse like Unique Bella at this point in her career, it doesn't look like she has the ability to shut it down. And I've talked about it in the past before races like the La Brea. It's one thing when you're going breakneck and everybody just kind of, it is what it is. You're more talented than everyone else. But what happens when she has to take dirt in her face? She didn't even have to do that this time around. Mike Smith seemed content keeping her 6 paths off the rail after that happened. But she so quickly went from basically last up to mid-pack, up to pushing the pace, up to taking over the pace, that she never got a breather, and she never really shut off. I understand just the ears are up, and she looks like she's loving life. She's still going unbelievably fast. And it would have taken a superior effort for her to overcome all this. But at the same time, there's a part of me that is looking at it saying, if she is the superstar that we've made her out to be, talent-wise, there's no question that it's there. But she's certainly not the most professional horse you've ever seen. You know, you want to compare the 2 big fillies that Hollendorfer has had recently, Unique Bella and Songbird. Unique Bella might be more talented, just raw ability, but she's just that. She's raw ability at this point still, and I guess that's a little bit disappointing to me, that through however many lifetime starts she's had, she still feels like she is just like the Hulk, just freaking out, where Songbird was just the consummate professional, where there was nothing that would bother her. She handled it all in stride. Maybe she wasn't as naturally talented as Unique Bella, but I didn't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. Unique Bella, as talented as she is and as gifted as she is, now am I going to have to worry about the gate? Am I going to have to worry about, well, if she does miss the break and now she's got to take dirt in her face, is she hopeless? I don't know. The move that she made and the fact that she was only beaten 2 1/4 lengths, and when you look at the way that the flow of this race sort of played out, she ran an enormous race. Nobody's taking that away from her. But there's the part of me, I had said on the preview show last week, that this race might be the most important race of the weekend, with all the races that were going on. The Arkansas Derby, the Jenny Wiley, the Makers 46, you name it. This one might be the most important race because this could possibly mean, are we looking at a horse that is just much too good? She's just far superior to the rest of the fillies and mares. And at some point, are they going to have to try to take on the boys or be interested in taking on the boys? Now I come out of this and say, well, did she not like the gate because she was away from her familiar surroundings? Well, that's a problem because the Breeders' Cup, as I touched on, it's at Churchill Downs this year, so she's going to have to get back on an airplane. Did she not like the sort of the sealed racetrack, the good sort of moist racetrack that she was running on? I don't know, but again, that could be a major problem because it sounds like, you know, November, Kentucky, you might be getting some precipitation. It was a little bit disappointing for me, considering she's supposed to be so far superior to everyone else. But if professionalism is what's going to beat her, man, you know, right now I'm going to have to withhold all of the just, you know, waxing poetic about her. Talent-wise, I don't think anybody's going to argue. She's one of the most talented horses, male or female, in training. But until the professionalism gets there a little bit more, it's a little bit disappointing. Hollendorfer says she's always been a little bit problematic. They're likely pointing to either the Beholder Mile at home or the Ogden Phipps on Belmont Stakes Day. Be fascinating to see. I would personally love to see her shipped to New York because I want to find out. Was it the ship that made her freak out, or was there something else going on? We'll find out. Disappointing effort that she could not get the job done here. The winner, Unbridled Mo, is a nice horse. Like I said, 7 of 10. Probably doesn't get the credit that she deserves. And Todd Pletcher deserves a lot of credit because she has had some physical issues. She's missed a lot of time. Having said that, she's on her left lead for the final 16th of a mile. She's drifting about. I feel like this was the perfect storm, the absolute best case scenario for Unbridled Mo, where Unique Bella misses the break, she rushes up, she's tired, she's feeling the effects of all that, and then Unbridled Mo is just better than everybody else in this field, and she goes on with it and gets the job done. Good on the connections. You got a grade 1 winner here, but I don't think the most talented horse won the race. Probably the most professional horse, and even having said that, with this horse popping back to her left lead for the final 16th, probably the most professional horse got the job done on Friday afternoon. But we'll find out going forward where Unbridled Mo ends up, and we'll find out what is next to come for Unique Bella. But on so far, 2 of the biggest stages that she has been running on, she's had a couple of duds. The Apple Blossom, as well as Breeders' Cup Saturday. She was too fast for her own good on Breeders' Cup Saturday. Here, She's a little bit unprofessional. Going to have to iron some things out. If she gets it all together, certainly one of the most talented horses that we've got, but always going to have a little bit of a lingering question in the back of your mind, knowing that she's going to be a short price in all of her races, and maybe or maybe not, she's going to have some issues with the gate or something else like that. Unique Bella is defeated at odds of 1-5. Unbridled Mo wins the Grade 1 Apple Blossom. The other Grade 1 run on Saturday afternoon was at Keeneland. This is the field for the Grade 1 Makers 46 Mile. 1 mile on the turf course, a field of 9 signed on. You had a pretty interesting betting board. You had 3 horses that were between 3-1 and 4-1, including your eventual post-time favorite, Heart to Heart. We know Heart to Heart's game. You let him get out there to an easy, rated lead. He is going to make you pay. I don't care what caliber of runner you are. We also know that if Heart to Heart has a straw in his path, he's probably going to say, no mas. I don't want to go on. I'm not going to pass anyone. So the key to this race on paper going in seemed to be, is Ohm coming in from Southern California going to push the envelope and push the issue early on, make Heart to Heart go fast, and then possibly soften him up a little bit, allow some of the closers into the race, or were they going to be content sitting, letting Heart to Heart dictate things on the front end, and trying to run him down as they turn for home? We got the answer pretty quick. Here's Kurt Becker with the stretch run of the Makers 46 Mile.
By a length. Is second. Bala Rocks looks for some running room in third toward the inside. Frostmorn in fourth. Into the final furlong of the Makers 46 Mile. Heart to Heart leads it by 2.5 lengths to Bala Rocks. Between horses. Frostmorn then Forge. Heart to Heart in front by 3 lengths. Heart to Heart wins it for Julien Leparoux.
Heart to Heart wins the 30th running of the Makers 46 Mile. He pays $8.40 as your 3-1 post-time favorite. Second place, Bala Rocks for Bill Mott coming off of a long layoff. 7-2 odds. He runs second in this spot. And Forge, the other Mott entrant, runs a nice effort here. One of his better races of his career, I would say. At odds of 9-1 to run third. Heart to Heart, let's take a look at him a little bit more. He is 15 of 35 lifetime. He's 7 years old now, and he is over $1.9 million in career earnings. This is a very, very nice horse, very impressive resume and career that he's put together. Back-to-back Grade 1 victories. This one here in the Makers 46, as well as the Gulfstream Park Turf Handicap just a few months back down at Gulfstream. He's owned by Terry Hamilton, trained by Brian Lynch, bred by Red Hawk Ranch, Ontario. He is a Canadian bred. He's ridden to victory by Julien Leparoux. Leparoux, I've talked about it on the West Coast. I think Martin Pedroza is one of the best front-end riders that there is. Maybe in the world, Julien Leparoux is one of the best judges of pace, in my opinion, particularly out on the front end. Very heady ride here. And you see the pedigree at the bottom of the page. He's by English Channel out of a silver deputy mare named Ask the Question. Now, here are some questions for you. Heart to Heart earns a 105 Beyer and a 129 Timeform US rating. The half-mile call, second call of the race, color-coded blue on Timeform US, meaning that it was slow, favoring horses on or near the early lead, making it difficult for horses coming from off of it. The 129 Timeform US rating, one of the best of Heart to Heart's career. The 105 Beyer, I believe, is the best Beyer speed figure of his career. Came home in 22.94. These pieces I don't so much argue. The concern becomes when you go deeper down the list here of runners. I didn't think there were really many trips in here. We'll talk about one horse in a little bit, but the real not issue, but concern, something I'm going to keep an eye on going forward, is once you get down to, let's say, horses 4, 5, and 6. Fourth place finisher was Ohm. Ohm was the horse that was pulling. He wanted to go, but they made a concerted effort to wrangle him back and just sit off of Heart to Heart. Okay, I think it was a terrible mistake, but I understand if that was their play, that was their play. The fact that this was arguably, according to the Beyer numbers, and even the Timeform numbers, one of the best races of Ohm's career, and he was fourth, beaten 2.5 lengths, I suppose it's possible, but that made me a little bit, okay, he's run faster than that in the past, so maybe it makes sense. But then I get to Frostmorn and Mr. Misunderstood. Frostmorn earned a 101 Beyer and a 125 Timeform US rating. Mr. Misunderstood, a 101 Beyer and a 125 Timeform US rating. Frostmorn was making his second start as a 4-year-old. He had never sniffed a 100 Beyer. Mr. Misunderstood was making a lifetime start, I don't even know what. He had never sniffed a 100. They both earned 101s running 5th and 6th in this race. And again, I realized that the difference between 2nd and 6th in this race was tiny, just maybe the 2.5 lengths. But really, the 6th and 7th place finishers, or the 5th and 6th, excuse me, ran the best races of their life? I don't know. That one, all I'm saying basically in a very roundabout way, long-winded way, is I'm going to keep an eye on this race going forward as far as the buyers are concerned, and even the time form numbers, because I wonder if this is a little bit on the fast side and perhaps it's a few points too high. Now, a few points in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it means a heck of a lot, but if you're trying to separate contenders from pretenders in certain races, just for your own sake, a few points here or there, that could be a big difference. I do wonder if this is maybe 2 or 3 points too high, the 105 buyer that Heart to Heart earns in this spot. Bala Rocks thought it was a good effort from him coming back off of the long layoff. Plenty of races, plenty of opportunities for him to run well. Forge, I've never been a huge Forge fan. I've talked about it a number of times over the past few weeks. Good effort from him. Ohm, I think you got to let him roll. Just go. Like he did in that Thunder Road. Throw 45 at him. Go. Come and catch me. You come and catch me. Don't let me be the one to try to catch you. Frostmorn, I thought this was a disappointing effort, all things considered. I know it was the fastest race, allegedly, of his career, but I expected a little bit more from him. Mr. Misunderstood is the one that I want to give the benefit of the doubt to. I picked him, and that's not why I'm saying this. He blew the break entirely, spotted the field 2 or 3 lengths. He's usually a horse that likes to be running sort of mid-pack. He had to come from last. He made this big move on the far outside, and he finished very, very well. Came home in 22-1. That was the fastest come-home time of anyone in the race. If you want the total actual number, it was 22:30. I thought it was a very good effort. If you think he can break more alertly and be more forwardly placed, perhaps he's in a position, I don't know, like Forge. Forge has only beaten just about 2 lengths for all the money. I think at least Mr. Misunderstood could have run a top 3 sort of performance and hit the board in a grade 1. Maybe he doesn't sniff Heart to Heart, but he at least gets closer. And he's one, I think, again, this will be a running line between this and that most recent run in the Munez. Maybe those two will look, well, maybe he's going off form. Not so. I think he's run 2 very good races, and wherever he shows up next, I'll be anxious to see what the field looks like because I'd like to bet this horse, Mr. Misunderstood. When you give the best horse, arguably the best trip, it's going to be very difficult to beat them. Heart to Heart has taken advantage of circumstances, but you can't sit here and not give the connections credit. This is a 7-year-old that they have kept in good form for years, and they have kept him in good form with that sort of running style. You got to give hats off to Brian Lynch, Julian Leperoux, and everyone involved with this horse. Very neat story. Heart to Heart gets the job done, wins the Makers 46 mile, 105 buyer, 129 time form U.S. rating. I realized I said that Makers 46 was run on Saturday. Obviously, it was run on Friday afternoon. One race that was run on Saturday afternoon back at Oaklawn was the Oaklawn Handicap, 1 1/8. Big purse, $750,000. You had a field of 11 signed on, and this was an instance where you needed to make some decisions. The locally based horses, most notably a horse like Hedge Fund, did you believe that he was going to continue on like I did? Like possibly he could work out some sort of a nice forward trip, and maybe he was really just starting to come into his own? Or did you just think that the form of the Southern California horses was going to be too much for everyone else to overcome, most notably Accelerate, the winner of the Santa Anita Handicap, and it seems like he has taken his game to the next level as a 5-year-old. And again, fascinating to see what happens once we get to see when they're fully matured, how good they can become. The wild card in the race was another Southern California entrant, though, in City of Light, because City of Light had never gone 2 turns in his career. With the far outside draw, would he be able to see out the distance? Where would he be positioned on the racetrack? And shipping out of town, was this going to be something that could work for him? Safe to say the answer is a resounding yes. Vic Stauffer with the stretch run of the Oaklawn Handicap.
Light off the top of the turn is now a length in front. Accelerate will have to battle back. 4 back to Untrapped and Sonneteer, City of Light to the final 16th, and he's clear now. He's a 2-length leader over Accelerate in second, who is trying to come back at him. City of Light, Accelerate cuts it back to a length. City of Light, Accelerate a half. City of Light.
Very, very impressive effort from City of Light. He is the winner of the Oaklawn Handicap, pays $11.40 on top as the 3rd choice, going off at odds of 9-2. The runner-up, Accelerate, a giant effort for John Sadler. He runs 2nd as your 6-5 favorite, and in 3rd, Untrapped, 8-1, and an interesting position for him tactically, usually coming from mid-pack or pressing the pace. He was outright on it, setting the fractions. I still think he's a horse. Please turn him back to a shorter distance. He runs 3rd, though, at odds of 8-1. Let's take a look more at the winner, City of Light. Never out of the exacta from 7 lifetime starts. He is 4 of 7 lifetime. Over $940,000 in career earnings, owned by Mr. and Mrs. William K. Warren Jr. trained by Michael McCarthy, bred by Anne-Marie Farm in Kentucky, ridden to victory by Drayden Van Dyke. You see the pedigree. He is by Quality Road out of a Dehair mare named Paris Notion. Big, big numbers for the top 2 runners in the Oaklawn Handicap. Both of them earn 107 Buyer speed figures, City of Light and Accelerate. Both of them earn 133 Timeform US ratings. City of Light came home in 12:12. Accelerate came home in 12:08. City of Light, the fact that he looked as impressive as he did in his first start going 2 turns, his first start going out of California, man, there is a ton to like about this horse. If you think that this is what he's going to be going forward, his gallop out was sensational. The fascinating thing is, it looked like he was going to blow the doors off of Accelerate at the top of the lane, and I think it was just the fact that Accelerate was as game as he was down on the inside coming back on him. These 2 ran superior races. This was really, really a fun one to watch, and it makes me think. I was sitting here on Friday during the preview show talking about how, if Unique Bella goes out there and does what she does, who is boss as far as the older males are concerned for, if we're thinking down the road like the Classic? I said, you got Accelerate, you got West Coast, who was a little bit disappointing, but then what? Well, Accelerate just solidified that, you know what, yeah, I do belong here, and distance-wise, he proved in the big cap that 1.25 miles not going to be much of a problem for him there. City of Light, if this horse all of a sudden, he can successfully stretch out, he can win grade 1s going long or short, possibly. He hasn't done it going long just yet, but with a race like this, he just beat a grade 1 winner. City of Light, this is a tremendous effort. Very, very exciting to think about what could be going forward for him. And it sounds like a possible landing spot for City of Light is the Metropolitan Handicap on the Belmont Stakes Day, which could set up a showdown between he and Army Mule, the horse that was so impressive winning the Carter just last week. And then anyone else that comes in for that race. Maybe a horse like a Sharp Azteca. City of Light, tremendous effort. Very, very impressive winning this race. Accelerate, it sounds like they're going to go back to Southern California with him. A race like the Gold Cup at Santa Anita is in play. I think it's a perfect spot for him. He should be bossing there. He's going to have to run against Opportunity and some other horses. But, boy, based on what he's done in 2018, you're not afraid of anyone if you're Accelerate. You lost this one, but you didn't lose anything in defeat. I think he actually impressed me more than he ever has in this race here because he came back so gamely on the inside. Big, big effort from the top 2. I hate to be just dismissive of everyone else. I've made it clear. I want Untrapped going shorter. I don't have a heck of a lot to say about anybody else in this field. I thought City of Light ran an unbelievable race. I thought Accelerate ran an unbelievable race. They are 1-2. Southern California well represented in Arkansas Saturday afternoon. City of Light, he wins the Oaklawn Handicap, 107 Buyer, 133 Timeform US rating. Back to Keeneland Saturday afternoon. This was the field for the Grade 3 Lexington. This was essentially a win and you're in for one horse. If my boy Jack, breaking from the far outside, could win the Lexington, boom, he's in. Punches his ticket to the starting gate for the Kentucky Derby in 3 weeks. But that was the big if he won. Overall, he was bet down to 7-5, and he had to overcome a field of 9 other competitors that were trying to upset the apple cart. But fear not. Keith and Kent DeSormo, they team up and they get the job done. Here's the stretch run of the Lexington.
Away, 4 lengths away. Here's Telekinesis up the inside to challenge and take the lead. Here comes my boy Jack down the outside, and Gravitas fighting on in between those 2. Telekinesis, my boy Jack, come to the front in the closing strides. My boy Jack gets up in the final.
My boy Jack, $5 on top as the winner of the Lexington. Goes off at odds of 7-5. The runner-up, Telekinesis. A horse we'll talk about a little bit more momentarily. Bet down to 7-2. A very impressive effort, in my opinion. And the third-place finisher was Pony Up for Todd and Johnny V, coming from well off the pace. Similar running style to my boy Jack. 5-1 as far as the off odds are concerned. Let's take a look a little bit more at my boy Jack. He is now 3 of 10 lifetime. He has been in the money on 8 different occasions, over $645,000 in career earnings. Owned by Don't Tell My Wife Stables and Monomoy Stables, LLC. Trained by Keith DeSormo. Ridden to victory by Kent DeSormo. Bred by Brereton C. Jones in the state of Kentucky. And the pedigree at the bottom of the page, you can see he's by Creative Cause out of a mineshaft mare named Gold in Shaft. Now here's the sad news, or the not sad news, but the disappointing news if you are a fan of my boy Jack. 90 Buyer speed figure, 117 Timeform US rating. You can look at this a couple different ways. From a buyer standpoint, let's just look at the 3-year-old preps that were run on Saturday. From the Lexington, you had my boy Jack with a 90. The Arkansas Derby, you had Magnum Moon with a 98. Timeform US, you had My Boy Jack with a 117, Magnum Moon 116. So you can see that there's a significant variation there as far as the numbers are concerned. My Boy Jack also has to factor in, or has to be brought into the equation, that this is a horse that comes from off the pace, and he makes one run. If you do get a legitimate pace, and Kent DeSormo said as much in the post-race quotes, the Derby is usually an honestly run race, so we think the closing kick is going to be good. You just need to hope that you work out a good trip, and that's always the danger of these one-run closers in a race like the Kentucky Derby. For what it's worth, the Lexington, the half-mile call, was color-coded red, meaning it was fast and helping horses coming from off the pace, most notably a horse like My Boy Jack, as well as Pony Up. I think My Boy Jack is a very, very neat horse. I like him a lot. I think there's a ton of ability here. I still want him on the turf. I don't have much interest as far at the moment. Again, we've got a long way to go. 3 weeks, it may not sound like it's a long time, but there are so many things that can happen in training and little hiccups, and somebody's got a case of the thumps or whatever it may be. My Boy Jack, I don't think I'm going to be using him as far as tickets are concerned. Maybe if I'm playing in Superfecta, I'll use him underneath, but that's even, I'm unsure about that. I think he's going to be a really, really serious racehorse when they get him back on the turf. But until then, I'm just going to sit back and hope and wish nothing but the best for the connections. My Boy Jack, a nice effort here. Telekinesis was a horse that I did not like coming into Lexington. I didn't like the fact that he couldn't get the job done in that second lifetime start when he was odds on down at the fairgrounds. And I know he was in a little bit tight on the inside, and I know he was facing older horses, but I just thought he should have done more. Maybe I was being a little bit unkind and unforgiving to a horse that was only making his second lifetime start. He shows up here, and this was a tremendous effort when you consider the way the race was run. That half-mile call being color-coded red, meaning the pace was fast, he was pressing it throughout. He was pressing Gravitas. I thought this was a really, really bang-up effort from this horse. He did everything professionally, and he was very, very game down the lane. He did not want to lose. Came home in 31.88. The only horses that came home faster were the two that were coming from out of the clouds, My Boy Jack and Pony Up. I think there's a lot to like about Telekinesis going forward. Mark Casse went as far as to say, I think he's a superstar. Whether he was saying that because that's one of his boys, or he genuinely believes that, or maybe it's somewhere in the middle. I think this horse has a ton of ability. He's in good hands with Mark Casse. Telekinesis is probably one that you want to throw into some sort of a stable watch or stable mail. I have a sneaky feeling it'll be a race like the Preakness, but maybe that'll be too much too soon, and they'll want to kind of take some more baby steps with him. But he's a very, very interesting prospect going forward as far as the 3-year-olds are concerned. Pony Up, I still think better off as a turf horse or a synthetic horse, although he did run on very well here at the end, but he did have a nice pace to run at. Gravitas is an interesting horse to consider going forward as well, because this was his first start as a 3-year-old, his first start since he had knee chip surgery. The concern I have is as well as he ran, he got tired at the end, but I'm not going to hold that against him when you look at the fractions. 23 and 147, 12 flat for 3/4. It was an honestly run race, especially with that half mile being color-coded red. But the problem is he changed leads very, very early. And again, this is a horse coming off of an injury-induced layoff. Never something that you'd like to see. I wish nothing but the best. I think this horse has a lot of ability, but you do wonder from a fragile standpoint, you know, where are we? Or hopefully we'll get him right back. Also worth noting, he's got that big pedigree for the turf. So I wonder if things don't work out for him on the dirt, or physically it's a little bit too demanding, you can always fall back onto the grass. My Boy Jack, the connections have to be over the moon. The goal coming into Keeneland was to win the Lexington and get in to the starting gate at Churchill Downs the first Saturday in May in the Kentucky Derby. Job well done. Mission accomplished. My Boy Jack wins the Lexington with a 90 buyer and a 117 Timeform US rating. One last race for us to recap here on the Matt Bernier Show, the recap edition, and then we'll dive into the stakes montage for this upcoming week. Let's go back to Arkansas, Hot Springs. Let's go to Oaklawn Park. We'll take a look at the Count Fleet Sprint Handicap. This was a relatively short field. Only 6 were going to go the 6 furlong distance. It was a grade 3 event. $400,000 was the purse. They were all going to need to beat Whitmore. Whitmore at his best is the best horse in this field pretty clearly. I don't think anybody was going to argue that. The question was, did you think dynamics were going to play against him? Did you think he'd be too close to the pace? Did you think possibly we would get a regression second start off the layoff? Or did you think that we would get back to the form that we saw from Whitmore last year when he was down in Arkansas and then leading in through those sort of big runs that he had in Maryland and in other places as well? Or were you looking for someone else to try to upset this thing, get the job done, possibly in front-running fashion like a horse like Smart Spree? Well, let's find out. Stretch run of the Count Fleet Sprint. Here's Vic Stauffer.
He has now extended his lead to 2 lengths from Win Time in second. Wilbo's in the center. Whitmore's gotta go. He's still 5 lengths behind, and Smart Spree's inside the furlong marker. Win Time is alongside. Smart Spree gonna have to dig down. Now Whitmore explodes in the center of the track, and look at him fly. Whitmore has to go, and he did. Wow! That is amazing.
Whitmore gets the job done. Successful as the 4-5 favorite, pays $3.60, winning the 45th running of the Count Fleet Handicap. Wilbo runs second, a big effort from the second longest price on the board at odds of 10-1, coming from some sort of a stalking position. He wasn't coming from too far out of it, but he also wasn't right up on the lead. And Win Time runs third at odds of 5-2. He was the second choice in this race. Again, a nice effort from him. Not quite good enough to hang on for second, but a good effort, all things considered, for Win Time. Let's dive into the winner a little bit more. Here is the horse card for Whitmore. He is 10 of 18 lifetime, 15 times, in the money out of 18 lifetime starts, over $1.5 million in career earnings. Owned by Southern Springs Stables, Robert LaPenta, and Head of Plains Partners, LLC. Trained by Ron Moquette, you can see he is bred by John Liviakis in Kentucky. Ridden to victory by Ricardo Santana Jr. A big weekend down in Oaklawn for Ricardo Santana Jr. And you can see the pedigree. He's by Pleasantly Perfect out of a Scat Daddy mare named Melody's Spirit. A 102 Beyer speed figure for Whitmore, winning the Count Fleet. 121 time form U.S. rating, came home in 11:52. I think the fascinating thing about this horse, he has shown the ability to lay close to the pace. He's also shown the ability to come from way out of it. And in this day, in this instance, and you see the fractions, they were honest. I don't think they were ballistic. 21-4, 45-3. He came from last. And Santana had an absolute stranglehold on this horse. He had 2 fistfuls of dynamite waiting to let him go. Finally lets him go, and the horse explodes down the lane. This was the Whitmore last year that some people were arguing could be the best sprinter in the country. This was very similar to that kind of performance. Now, we know what happened going forward last year. And it'll be very, very interesting to see how his campaign is managed going forward. Do they race him a little bit more infrequently this year than they did last year, knowing the wheels kind of fell off as the year went on last year? Do you pick your spots, try to keep the horse fresh, try to keep him happy and sound, and then go for the big money? It sounds like it's up in the air. An option for his next start is the Churchill Downs Stakes on the Kentucky Derby undercard, going 7/8 of a mile. He's going to be facing what looks like it could be a very, very salty field. So there's a part of me that wonders, are you better off waiting for races like the True North at Belmont Park? Give him a few weeks off, have him ready to go, cranked, bang, come out there. Have him ready to go for Saratoga, for some of the big prizes up there. We'll find out. A good effort from Whitmore, and you know he loves the track down at Oaklawn. The runner-up, Wilbo, 100 Beyer, 121 time form U.S. rating. The third-place finisher, Win Time, 100 Beyer, 119 time form U.S. rating. The cynic, or the sort of contrarian, as far as the handicapper is concerned, would look at this and say, if you beat Wilbo by 3/4 of a length, how can you be considered one of the top sprinters in the country? I understand that entirely, and that's not meant to be a slight against Wilbo. It's just calling a spade a spade. Wilbo has never been considered one of the best sprinters on dirt in the country. So I understand when the waters get deeper, Whitmore is going to need to prove that he actually can swim in those waters, but based on what he's done so far, coming back here as a 5-year-old, I have no reason to believe that he is not in as good form or better than he was last year. We'll find out what his next start is, where it is, and how they're going to employ the sort of tactics. Is he going to be more forwardly ridden? Is he going to come from off of it? The good news is he can adapt to a pace situation. If they go crazy, he can come from out of it. If they go slow, he can be forwardly placed. Nice training job by Ron Moquette. Whitmore gets the job done in the Count Fleet with a 102 Beyer speed figure. That's going to wrap it up as far as the recaps are concerned. And again, I say it sound like a broken record. I wish we could go through and do full in-depth recaps for every race that we had this past weekend from a stakes standpoint, but we just can't. For my sake and for your sake, because nobody wants to listen to a 7-hour show. So here we are. What we do, we button them all together, throw them in. There's a couple of graded stakes that'll be included in this between the Fantasy and the Ben Ali. Go through all these stakes races. You watch the stretch runs, and then we'll go back and take a look and see some of the best performances over the past weekend from a Beyer speed figure standpoint. So without further ado, here's this weekend's stakes montage.
Harbor Lights fourth, final furlong. Amy's Challenge lead is half of what it was at the quarter pole. And here comes Wonder Godot and David Cabrera trying to gun down Amy's Challenge. A 16th out. Now the lead's only a length. Wonder Godot, Sassy Sienna between horses. Wonder Godot takes the lead. Sassy Sienna gonna test her to the wire. Sassy Sienna got Wonder Godot right together.
Superstar with a sweeping wide move off the far turn has gone from last to second and is trying to chase down Chip Leader, who's moving by the 8th pole in the Ben Ally. Rated R Superstar keeps coming on. Chip Leader a short lead. 16th pole. Rated R Superstar has taken the lead in deep stretch. Rated R Superstar for Javier Castellano to win the Ben Ally. Chip Leader was home. Safe spending is in 5th. Morticia the leader, but Lady Aurelia right alongside, coming to the 8th pole. Then a gap of 3 back to Triple Chelsea 3rd. Excessive spending 4th. Lady Aurelia short lead from Morticia. Triple Chelsea's coming on the outside from 3rd to 2nd. Triple Chelsea right alongside and moving by Lady Aurelia, Triple Chelsea, and Adam Beschizza to take the jump.
Is battling back. 4 back to Ego Trip, who's just taken 3rd. Title Ready's got a lot of work to do. High North and Ike. These two to the final furlong, and High North's a half length in front. Ike is battling him all the way, but High North is just now inching clear. It is High North a length and a half. Ike, then Higher Power. High North to the wire to win. High North wins the Northern Spur by
a stretch. Black Stetson off the turn. Nootka Sound to the outside. Between those two, Smooth B. Down the center of the track, trying to put in a bit is Ambassador Jim. Colton, Mississippi's getting involved too. They still have to catch Black Stetson, who's going for the upset. Nootka Sound yet to get by. Then it's Colton, Mississippi, and Ambassador Jim. It's going to be Black Stetson to hold him off. Stallionera set down. Uni yet to be let loose. And now she's being urged with 1 furlong to run. And 55 comes up the fence. Uni and 55 go by Stallioneras. It's Uni in front. 55 on the inside. Stallioneras keeps on fighting, but it's Uni. Uni's got it close to home, and Uni's going to do it in the Plenty of Grace. Over 50.
Fence at the top of the stretch. Tough Sunday make it a triple, joined by B Squared out wide. Tough Sunday's under heavy pressure on the inside. B Squared moves into a narrow lead. Make it a triple, tries to hang Tough between them. It's B Squared on the outside. Tough Sunday battling brilliantly on the inside. Tough Sunday coming again. B Squared, Tough Sunday, B Squared and O's Tough Sunday.
Blue Prize is second. Verve's Tail third down the center. Closing the gap with 4.5 lengths to make up and a furlong to do it. Frostwise in front. It is Blue Prize second. Verve's Tail still with a lot of work to do, but trying to close in. Frostwise taken on by Blue Prize. Verve's Tail's down the center. It's Blue Prize coloring Frostwise. Blue Prize, Frostwise, Blue Prize. Over Frost beginning to roll is Raucous, and they're coming to the top of the stretch. And here is Out of the Flames, out of the pack to take the lead. Africa running strongly on the outside. I Still Miss You fights on. March Express is closing too with Mentality. Golden Days on the inside and Raucous, and they're coming to the final 16th. Here comes Africa. Battling back is Out of the Flames. These two Out of the Flames holds off Africa.
Front tackle by Speed on the outside, and the others are well behind, and still they can't get Oh So Regal. They've had their chance. Now running on his futile. Oh So Regal racing away, and there are no dangers. Oh So Regal has turned up what looks to be a monstrous effort in the Sunland Park Handicap, and just so easy. 4 lengths. Speed second.
There you have it, some nice efforts this past weekend in the stakes montage. We'll find out if there are any horses from those races that wind up on the weekend's best performances from a Beyer speed figure standpoint. We'll do that right now. Let's throw it up. This is the way we normally do. This doesn't matter what distance, surface, gender, whatever it may be. The best performances from a figure standpoint, from a Beyer speed figure standpoint, all listed for you right here, broken down. Let's go right in order. 3-year-old males on dirt. Magnum Moon earns a 98 Beyer speed figure, winning the Arkansas Derby at Oaklawn Park. That was the best performance from a 3-year-old male on dirt this past weekend. 3-year-old females, go Google yourself, and Geo Game in a non-winners of one other than at Keeneland. They both earned 86 Beyer speed figures. 3-year-old males on turf, a horse that I'm very, very high on. I think he's very talented, is Hawkish, a 3-year-old. He won a non-winners of one other than at Aqueduct for fun with a 92 Beyer speed figure. The 3-year-old fillies on turf. How about a horse called Reverse the Decision for Chad Brown, 83 Beyer speed figure, breaking her maiden at Aqueduct. Nice to see that Aqueduct in New York. We got back to the turf. Laurel as well got back to turf this past weekend. It's nice. Spring is allegedly in the air. Depends on where you are. It's about 38 degrees right now where I am. Older males on dirt, City of Light and Accelerate. They put on that show down in the Oaklawn Handicap. They both earn 107 buyer speed figures. Older females on Friday afternoon. And this one is a little bit different this week. I should throw that out there. I included the Friday day of stakes just simply because they're grade ones. Normally, we only go Saturday, Sunday. But in this instance, older females, Unbridled Mo with a 95 buyer speed figure, winning the Apple Blossom on Friday at Oaklawn Park. Older males on turf, Heart to Heart with a 105 buyer, winning the Makers 46 Mile at Keeneland on Saturday. And also on Saturday at Keeneland, the grade one. I keep saying that the Makers 46 was run on Saturday. It wasn't. That was run on Friday as well. The Jenny Wiley for older fillies and mares was run on Saturday at Keeneland. Sister Charlie for Chad gets the job done in her first start as a 4-year-old with a 103 buyer speed figure. There they are. Doesn't matter surface, distance, whatever it may be. The best buyer speed figures over the past weekend here on the Matt Bernier Show. Can you tell? It's kind of a we're trudging through. We're getting that final eighth of a mile in about 14 seconds right now, staggering home. If you've been watching this live, thank you for doing so. Live.drf.com, livestream.com, the Daily Racing Form's Twitter handle. That would be at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Form's Facebook page. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. Questions, comments, concerns, whatever else it may be, fire away. I'm all ears. I'll respond to some. I won't respond to some others. Racing, sports, anything in between. Just no politics. None of that. I don't want to hear about that. If you've been listening in podcast form, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. If you listen on YouTube, I would strongly encourage you to click the subscribe button. You will get all of the latest offerings from DRFTV. Will be uploaded right to your front page on YouTube. Again, that is the Daily Racing Forms YouTube page. Click that subscribe button. We will be back with the preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show coming up on Friday afternoon, noon Eastern. Before we dive into all that, let's talk a little bit about the DRFTV schedule of events for this upcoming week. I don't want to call it the sort of lull between the end of the preps and the Kentucky Derby itself, but there is a little bit of a letdown. The big event this weekend is the Charlestown Classic. That's always a fun race down in West Virginia. Also opening weekend, one of my favorite racetracks in the entire world, Woodbine, opening weekend up north of the border in Toronto area. Should be very, very fun. Looking forward to that. Getting back to those races, you'll have all sorts of DRF Bet spot plays. You will have formulator angles. You will have, you name it, Derby Watch. You'll have Oaks Countdown. You name it. Keeneland Babies. All over the place. You'll have a little bit of everything. You'll have your normal stakes previews this week from myself and Mike Beer. And then on Friday, we will have the DRF Players podcast at 11 o'clock. If you listen live or watch live, Peter Thomas Fornatal and Jonathan Kinchin. At noon, you will have the Matt Bernier Show, the preview edition, getting you ready for some racing coming up that weekend. I have to be honest with you, though, this week, we'll probably go through, we'll do the recap of all of the sort of horses, the top 25 or so. We'll give them grades. We'll go through, watch some tape. Similar to what we did last year. I had some people on Twitter asking if I was going to be doing any sort of a grading system. Same show that we did last year. We'll do that this week on this week's preview show, and then we'll lead into the latest edition of Out of the Gate, as we always do, with everything coming through from all of the contributors all across the Daily Racing Form world. As far as next week is concerned, a little bit of programming, we'll do a little bit of housekeeping here. There will be a recap show next Tuesday that will be out. There will be no preview show next Friday. So this coming Friday, it'll be sort of the button-up as far as grades are concerned. Next Friday, there will not be a preview show. And then the following week, we will dive deep into all things Kentucky Derby. The recap edition will be going through all of the 3-year-old preps leading into the Kentucky Derby. And then the preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show, the week of the Kentucky Derby. You'll have Kentucky Oaks, Kentucky Derby, some other stakes races from Churchill Downs and everywhere else. So a lot of things coming up here over the next handful of weeks on DRF TV and the Matt Bernier Show in general. If you've been listening again, thank you for doing so. We will talk again on Friday with the preview edition. Until then, however you're playing, whatever you're playing, wherever you're playing, best of luck. This has been the Matt Bernier Show.